Gorebeast Chariots, collision attacks, and you! As our standard bearer for heavy chariots, this is about the core unit in the Warriors of Chaos roster. I'm pretty sure I covered the Khorne variant once, but chariots keep changing. Let's examine this heavyweight multi-entity chariot and see what kind of mark it leaves on the game and its enemies. Recruited for 1200 gold or equivalent and kept for 300 upkeep on Ultra Scale, you get 4 chariots and 6,560 health between them. Armor is 130, which is not that far from a steam tank. The name of the guy is Grimgor Ironhide, and he starts with 120. He gets more later, mind you. Leadership is 70, speed is 66, which is so slow it makes us old players remember how slow chariots and heavy cavalry were in older games generally. Charge speed is 108. Melee attack 30 isn't that high, but is better than a lot of chariots. Attack interval 4 seconds is standard. Splash target size very large, means almost everything not a character or single entity unit gets splashed. Max target splashed is 3 in pitched combat. Chariots charging use an effect called collision attacks that are the whole point of a chariot, and while there's a maximum, you still want to plow the fields as much as possible. Melee defense starts at 32, and this side of high elves above 25% health, it's pretty good. Weapon strength of 70 is high for chariots, split base 26 and armor piercing 44, so a heavily armor piercing bent and doing more overall damage than Saurus warriors, which come in batches of 100, not 4. Now you know why charges are necessary. There is a bonus versus infantry of 30, which is almost as much as you get from a mammoth, and that means literally doubling melee attack from 30 to 60 at rank 0 so long as you are punishing mere men. Charge bonus is 80, and mass is 2,000. So this is emblematic of heavy chariots with monstrous mounts, and will serve as our example of the same hereafter. Traits are limited to hide in forest and causes fear, nothing else for now. In mainland Chaos, Hammer into Anvil at 3 pips brings melee defense plus 8, an interesting choice taking us from 32 to 40, and charge bonus plus 12 flat taking us from 80 to 92. Speed and Malice gives rank 7 end up 1s plus 10% speed, plus 5 melee attack for the Malice, and plus 15% missile resistance to spite your missiles. Warriors of Chaos tech upgrades only cover unlocking Gorebeast Chariots from the Warband upgrades. The redline skills will be common to Chaos Lords and so on across monogod factions too, but faction bonuses could vary depending. So how do we use Gorebeast Chariots? This is the heart of the matter. If an opposing unit of infantry is braced, but not charge defense versus large, usually a feature of spear, pike, and halberd units, the unit will effectively have higher mass. We know, if we didn't sleep through the class in high school, that momentum is a product of mass and speed. It is not necessary to know the exact multiplier the game uses for comparison to mass figures. We just know that while it's nice to have a faster chariot, a loss of let's say 12 points of speed is not greater than the gain of 500 more mass per entity. So it is possible to charge straight down a bracing enemy unit's throat, doing all kinds of damage. The only downside is that you're not keeping the charge going for as long as theoretically possible because the mass on the other side is effectively higher. And once the mass on the other side cancels out the momentum on your side, the charge stops. Thus, the heavier the chariot and the faster that chariot becomes, the more our momentum and the longer the charge can last. While the game absolutely takes momentum into account for damage, one kind of it, the vast majority of damage on a charge occurs if the attack roll succeeds and the collision attack connects, doing our weapon strength damage, plus bonus versus infantry, assuming that you're hitting infantry, plus charge bonus, split along the original armor busting damage ratio, and that is the main damage that the chariot is producing. The question about attacking from a better angle is purely theoretically you can mulch much more targets before the charge bonus comes to a complete stop. Charge bonus decays over a 15 seconds tops duration, so the second or third melee attack within that time will carry much of the charge bonus, but not all of it. The first hit, all of it. That's on a clean charge. Now, what happens when the attack roll fails? I mean, there is a maximum 2 hit in the engine. Even with charge bonus 92 on top of, let's say, melee attack 68 modified by veterancy and bonus versus infantry, and the opponent having melee defense, let's say 32. There is some chance of a miss, In such a case, or if the maximum in-engine valid targets is exceeded, we get impact damage, tossing models around and doing a lot less, but not zero damage. Obviously, the greater the momentum, the greater this damage will be, but I reiterate, this is not the ideal, this is far less than a successful attack's damage. Now, can you do enough pure impact damage to destroy infantry entities entirely? Sure, Skarbrand does it all the time. Gorebeast Chariots don't quite go that far, but the more they are in motion, and the less fatigued they are, and the cleaner the impact, they maximize their consolation prize damage, because that's what it is. It's not the best damage, but it is damage. Where the speed and the mass, therefore the momentum of the chariot, matters a lot, and that's why they do less of it when fatigued, because their speed is less. During a charge, every part of the chariot entity is a weapon up to its programmed limit. Front, side, it's all good. None of this is fundamentally different from the other chariots. I've said and shown that skeleton chariots are actually very usable now. Gorebeast Chariots have a third of the number of entities, but they're big, heavy entities. You can absolutely use and abuse them without any other mechanics at all. And what you see here is that it's not that hard to pull them out as a group. They're only facing infantry in this demo combat, but it is still pretty easy, relatively speaking, to pull them out and get them into new charges. And that's the name of the game. That's what we want to do with them. So, what I want to convey, imperfectly because I'd love to have exact math in front of me, is that where splash damage is taking a set number, like 70, and dividing it up by 2 or by 3 depending on valid attacks, something else is going on for collision attacks. You are getting to a number so high that 100% health infantry entities can outright die in one hit. That's what I call, again imperfectly, cleave damage. Sharing damage in a way that benefits you a lot more. Here, mass and therefore momentum isn't so much making the collision attack stronger. I have consistently read it claimed that the two do not occur at the same time, but it makes the charge longer. The longer the charge animation lasts, the longer the collision attack damage is being used, even as the charge bonus is decaying in real time. More is better, that's what you really need to know, and more mass means more charging in effect. And where this might actually be a bigger issue is when you're not fighting Empire Swordsmen, but something like Orc Biggins, because Orc Biggins have higher mass, but they are not charge defense versus large, even though that they actually have a bonus versus large on the attack. So, if you have more mass to work with, you can bowl them over a lot more easily. At some point, if you're fighting, let's say, Skaven slaves, you're probably hitting your limit at some point, and the heaviness of the chariots is being somewhat wasted. But you're still doing a lot of damage anyway, so do you really regret your life choices? No, not really. So with all this said, how should you use these in particular? Since the bonus versus infantry is so large and they favor armor-piercing damage, you should have a much more elastic understanding of when they are winning in melee. If the enemy can't hurt them very well, then they can stay in pitched combat and they'll be okay until they're extremely tired. Then they'll take more damage regardless. They are hard to mess up, but historically I found the hero versions hard to pull out because they snag on enemy entities easily. Regardless, when you're facing cavalry and so on, they can get stuck. This is when your own anti-cavalry is necessary to clean things up. They'll fight their way out of certain problems. Fighting giants is not one of them. The rest is making up for the lack of high speed. If you're charging a gun line, understand that while you don't want to charge guns in a predictable path, you also don't want to slow down too much, zipping and zagging. If facing solid lines of braced spears, that's rough. Try to find a way around it. If you see anything that isn't anti-large like that, the shortest path into the gun line might be through their own melee infantry. And it probably is. Punch through, don't stop, keep plowing forward, run over them, and tie down the shooty bunch and exploit the damage. The reason you do this is that a lot of factions put a lot of their damage potential in those lines. War machines are a tough nut here. Pure artillery, if you can get to them in time, you just wreck them just fine. Everything else, you're just trying to take a bite out of it to help. The job of a really heavy chariot is to be less atrocious against large entity cavalry and to help with the rest, but to be absolutely dominant against even elite armored infantry given the proper angle of attack. Finding that angle is indeed up to you, but the efficient wins free up your forces for other dark deeds, and that's the point of it. Taking out gun lines means taking away damage, and that's great, but taking out the protective infantry strips the entire enemy army bare of its defenses. Pick what's best for a given situation and act accordingly. Hopefully, this explanation and the footage helps you understand how to use these and how they're just a bit different than other kinds of chariots. Simply put, they're harder to stop, even though they're slower to get into position to make that charge. Minimize detour and maximize plowing. Take care and have fun with a more land-based version of mowing the grass, in military terms.